Okay, so the next chapter is for us. From what we learned in the last chapter, everyone's starting to suss Jin. Their thoughts and ideas and recollection of things are starting to all really kind of gear into one timeline kind of frame of mind. And I'm kind of interested to see what's happening. I'm actually really into this story. Taeyoung writes an entry on July 10th, year 22. I woke up, startled, because Namjoon was shaking my shoulder. Are you okay? I saw the worried look on his face, but I couldn't open my mouth to answer him. I had had countless nightmares, but this was the first time to feel fear like that. Empty and blank. I looked down at a towel he handed me. So if you remember from the notes 1, he had had a dream before, and I want to say it was about Yumi. When I gradually stopped sweating, I recalled where I was and how I got there. Last evening, I came to Namjoon's container to avoid my dad's drunken rage. I became afraid of falling asleep. It began when I realized my god-awful nightmares weren't just nightmares, but somehow linked to reality. Every dream was mind-boggling, especially the ones about Seokjin. The dreams seemed to be demanding some kind of answer from me, as if they were telling me that there was a problem and I had to fix it. But I couldn't do a thing on my own. I have a break in the page, which usually means passage of time or like another scene. In the dream, I jumped into a blazing fire. I saw Namjoon's container. Hired goons came brandishing iron pipes, and the people that lived in the containers ran away or were down on the ground. Among them, I saw Namjoon with a black mask on. He ran into a container, and then a boy was literally thrown out of it. The next moment, someone screamed, and the fire soared up from the inside of the container. Namjoon is not out yet. He's still in there. I let out a scream, but there were no sounds, no words. I wanted to run to him, but my feet were kicking in midair. Everything slowed down and I couldn't breathe. And someone was down on the ground. The people whispered, "Is he dead? Really dead?" The scene in the dream changed to Seokjin. He was sitting in the middle of a meeting room. From the window, he was gazing down at the night scene. Sitting on the sofa, he fixed his eyes on the window, his face terrifyingly cold, and his soulless eyes were not really looking at anything. Yanji Stream was among the things he was looking at. Across the stream were apartment buildings in Munhyun City. Right below him was a line of brightly lit buildings. I saw a billboard for a canned coffee on one of building rooftops, and behind it was a commercial building with the 4-leaf clover logo displayed on the second floor. The window rattled from a gust of wind outside. The old moon, looking like an upside-down crescent moon, hung in the sky. It looked as small as a clipped-off nail. Seokjin phoned someone, said a word or two, and hung up. A moment later, the light was turned off in every building. The world inside the window became pitch black in an instant. It was a fearful darkness, not because the world outside had become invisible, but as if the world had perished. Not just the buildings or the city. Seokjin smiled, finding it satisfactory, and he stood up and walked over to the door. That was when our eyes met. No, I thought they had. But he passed me and walked out, unable to move a muscle. I simply watched him walking away. Can you find that place? Namjoon asked, rubbing his chin. I shook my head. I saw Yanji Stream in the dream, but you could see that stream from any part of Seonju. Think about it carefully. What floor do you think you were on? Anything eye-catching in scenes outside the window? Or did you hear anything? Why, though? To that, Namjoon said, to go and find the place. I stared at him. The place? Why? Because. He didn't finish, but said, Taeyoung, do you think that will really happen? Things you saw happen in your dream. Seokjin makes a phone call and Seongju becomes buried in darkness. No, disappears. I couldn't answer him right away. When I thought about what had happened so far, my nightmares did become reality. But I couldn't be sure it would be the same again. Namjoon said, You're not sure, are you? So let's go and see. If there's really that place, if it were to really happen, we need to find out what we should do. I nodded. There were lots of buildings. They looked like offices, not restaurants. I could look down on a 4 or 5 story high building. So the building I was in must have been at least 7 stories high. I saw a billboard for a canned coffee and a 4-leaf clover logo. Namjoon said, 4-leaf clover? That's a Mart logo near Hosek's orphanage. No, that's a 3-leaf clover. Really? I think I saw something like that somewhere. Namjoon puzzled and said. He suggested looking for the billboard. The area with lots of offices is near City Hall, or the downtown area near Gundong. We could start by looking for a 7-story building there. Let's go now since we have to cover a lot of areas. When we walked out of the container, the night wind felt cool. We got onto the bus to City Hall first. How many buildings in Songju are 7 stories high, do you think? I don't know. A lot, I guess. A lot? Not just a lot. A lot, a lot. How can you say it just like that? To that, Namjoon smiled and said, I know, but how else can you say that then? I doubted whether Namjoon really believed what I had told him. Whether he was just going along with me without believing a word I said. Maybe that was why he could talk about it so casually. The bus went along the railway. The old town quickly grew distant, and soon we were in the area densely packed with buildings. We got off downtown near City Hall. From the bus stop, we took a sweeping look around. There were many tall buildings on both sides of the road, and more buildings in the next block as well, and countless billboards. I didn't know where to begin. Namjoon said, let's go over there. You take that side, I'll take this side. We combed through both sides of the street. There were billboards for energy drinks, cookies, and insurance, and even a big screen with the news on it. I did see a billboard for a canned coffee, but not the same one in my dream. Namjoon asked, you said you saw Yeonji's stream. Maybe it was a different stream, in a faraway city somewhere. I shook my head. It wasn't a different city, it was more or less a conviction I had. Interesting, right? Alright, so the next entry is Namjoon on the 11th of July, which is the next day. We went up and down the different buildings all night. Could we really find the place? Zonked out in the plaza, in front of City Hall, we looked up at the night sky. We could see only the right half of the moon. I remembered Taeyoung mentioning the moon in his dream. The old moon, he said. There would be the old moon 20 days from now, and a month after that, and another month after that, and a year after that, and 10 years after that. It was impossible to figure out the timing of it just with the shape of the moon. I finished my drink, and after crumpling up the can, I said, there is one last place we should go check. Another break in the page, which means a different scene. The last building wasn't it either. When we walked up to the rooftop, we couldn't see either a billboard for canned coffee or a 4-leaf clover logo. I didn't know Songju was this big, I said as I crisscrossed the rooftop. Me either. With way too many buildings, I wouldn't wish for anything else if I owned one floor of any building out there. Taeyoung grumbled as he stood next to me. We stood side by side with our arms dangling over the rooftop rail. Do you really believe what I told you? I asked him. Over in the distance, red light glimmered as the sun was rising. It became bright all around, and it'd be stifling hot in no time. Because we'd been running around the whole time, sweating, I felt wet around my neck. Wiping away the sweat with my palm, I said, when you believe something which you find hard to believe, that's really believing it. Not understanding what I'd said, Taeyoung exclaimed in disbelief, if you believe something, you believe it. If you can't believe something, you don't. What do you mean by believing something which you find hard to believe? He looked down on Songju. I know. I don't know what I'm saying either. Anyway, let's go down. We walked across the rooftop and took the elevator to the ground. It was the start of a new day. So they're looking for something that was in a dream, and dreams can be metaphorically like, they can show you things or tell you things about yourself or your thoughts that you don't really understand. And I think that's what's kind of like they're thinking it is, right? Jin puts in an entry on the same day, 11th of July, year 22. I looked around. My dad, the mayor of Songju, the people from the Scholarship Foundation, and the president of the construction company. They were all familiar faces. I sat in an empty seat next to Uncle Junho. The meeting got underway. I took out my notebook, but didn't jot anything down. I wasn't interested, nor was the meeting important. They talked about starting the redevelopment earlier. With Area 3 pretty much cleared out, shouldn't we tear down the place now? And the topic changed to the containers. Someone handed my dad a list of the container residents. But as he put it down, disinterested, he shot a glance at me. I'd seen the list in one of the time loops. It was on my dad's desk in the den. Namjoon's name on the list was circled in red. I knew then that my dad already knew Namjoon was one of the target residents to be cleared out on September 30th. I begged him, please stop this, stop the demolition. All he did was look at me once, without even refusal. I stammered out a couple of words, but after simply standing there for a while, I left without getting anything out of it. The meeting was scheduled to end before lunch. I was able to peel away from them by walking to the parking lot. I got to my car and rejected a phone call. The unexpected call was from the police department. I found a record from that day by going over the phone calls. I knew what was going on. The police officer said they received a call about a hit and run and wanted the black box video of my car from May 22nd. May 22nd was the day I had an accident on the way back from the beach. The officer said it was a hit and run, so it might be Jungkook's case. I couldn't believe it, but I had nothing to hide. I told him I'd do it. The night after the accident, I had had the tires and engine checked at a nearby car center. Nothing out of the ordinary happened, but the center owner asked me a question in passing. What happened? Then he took darting glances at me and the car, and I said nothing. But there were unwarranted discontent and greed in his eyes. Did you call the police? When I asked on the phone, the center owner realized who I was and coughed. I did tell you that I skidded against the guardrail, but giving false information to the police, you've damaged my reputation and hampered my police business. Have you thought about that? He was quiet. I could picture him realizing how he was in a pickle. I had gone overboard by mentioning reputation and hampering police business, but putting him in hot water wasn't so bad. Being strong and pretending to be strong are different, and people should know their place. You haven't even apologized. Only after hearing that did he say he must have made a mistake and apologized. Think an apology will solve this? I hung up without hearing an answer. Dude, he's starting to turn into his dad. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the time loop's just a diversion and Jin's dad is actually Jin. Wouldn't that be crazy? Next entry, 13th of July, year 22. This is Namjoon. I roamed the city for 3 days but had nothing to show for it. Why do you switch your work shifts so often these days? When my boss at the gas station asked, I hung my head low. I yawned and looked around the office. Eyeing him, I cleaned the office with a rag. Morning came early when we were out wandering the city. Some buildings turned off the lights at night, so we had to pay extra attention not to miss anything. I turned around, hearing someone snoring, and it was my boss in the massage chair. I was trying to leave the office quietly when I saw a logo next to the headset, a 4-leaf clover. Taeyoung, is this what you saw? He texted me right away. That's right, where did you find it? The massage chair company had 6 marketing offices in Songju. They sold the chairs by letting people try them. One of the offices was inside a huge retail store and one was located on a lower floor. I eliminated the office located in the building where you couldn't see the stream. That left 2, one downtown in Gundong and the other near City Hall. Taeyoung writes an entry on July 17th, year 22. The typhoon arrived in the afternoon on the 14th. Before it did, we took a look at the 2 massage chair offices near City Hall and one in Gundong. We couldn't find a canned coffee billboard, but we climbed up every nearby 7-story high buildings from where we can see a 4-leaf clover logo in Songji stream. On the morning news that day, they said typhoon, I don't know how to say this, Taeyoungs was approaching the southern coast. Taeyoungs meant goldfish, okay, so we'll say goldfish instead in Thai. The typhoon named goldfish with the hope that it would pass quietly like a goldfish. Like its namesake, its size was small but not the amount of rain. What had started as a drizzle soon turned into big sheets of raindrops. We visited different buildings with umbrellas. Soon we went around without them and ended up getting into brawls. The downtown in Gundong area was lined with bars and clubs where people got drunk, and out of drunkenness or anger, they got themselves into brawls. Seeing us soaking wet as we tried to walk up the rooftop, they thought we were some Jewies looking for some trouble and kicked us out. The doors of the rooftops were often locked and it was impossible to check the view from the staircase windows. The convenience store we went in to get instant cup noodles had their AC turned on too strong. The wet clothes clung to our skin and our teeth chattered from the cold. Without a word, Namjoon and I stared at the rain outside the window. Neither of us mentioned quitting. Things got worse the next day. Because of the stormy wind, the windows had X marks taped on them, and there were small and big accidents caused by the wind-blown signposts and newspaper stands. The news reported submerged areas, and road signs came loose and damaged some cars. Namjoon and I couldn't do a thing except stare at the rainy sky. Okay, we got a break in the scene, right, in the paragraph, which means a change of scenery. Namjoon opened the online map on his phone. Looking at the road view, he checked the places we'd been to and hadn't been to, and he said, we combed through the downtown and City Hall area near 4-leaf logo. We should search on the internet if there's any other massage chair office. While Namjoon was checking, I looked up at the night sky. Rain was pouring down from the black sky. Maybe it was a silly dream. Namjoon didn't even look up as he said, "That'd be great, but what if it wasn't?" What if it wasn't? I repeated in my head. I recalled how the lights of Songju vanished altogether at one instant. I wish I could remember more about the dream, but I couldn't. I squatted down next to Namjoon. Taeyoung showed me the pics that you took in front of the convenience store by City Hall. Sitting next to him, I took out my phone. As we roamed the city, we took pictures of places. When I got home, I went through the pictures to see if I had missed anything. No, not that one. The one you took from the convenience store next to the movie theater. Namjoon pointed to a place in the road view. Look, these pictures we took are different from the road view billboards. So, our pictures are different because the road view was taken early this year. That's what I mean. If there were a canned coffee billboard instead of this energy drink one, wouldn't this look like the scene you saw in your dream? Looked at the phone picture and back at the road view. If there was a canned coffee billboard there, then... But there wasn't a building near the place that was 7 stories high. Namjoon nodded. I don't remember seeing one, and there wasn't one in the road view either. But this one comes closest to what you saw in your dream. There isn't another place. Let's try here when the rain stops. I looked at him, feeling a bit odd. There were differences between the picture and the road view. And there was no 7-story building. More importantly, there was an energy drink billboard, not a canned coffee one. How could he explain the differences? Namjoon gazed at me as if to ask what was up. He said, "You said what you saw in your dream was a future. You said so yourself." "Right." "That's right, but still. What I'd seen in my dream did happen in reality. I'd said that to him because I experienced what I'd seen in my dream, but this dream hadn't happened yet. Because of that, I couldn't believe a canned coffee billboard would replace the energy drink one." "You really think it will?" Namjoon nodded and said, "I do. If I didn't, and something were to happen, then I would." He stopped there. Namjoon knows something's up. I feel it. Okay. Jimin puts one in on July 18th, year 22, which is the next day from the previous entry. Jimin puts in another entry on July 18th, year 22, which is the next day. It was 9:45 at night. I had to wait 15 more minutes for Taeyoung to get off work. I walked around outside the convenience store to kill time, behind Songju Jao Middle School. We used to climb this side of the school wall to skip classes or to wait for the others in the small park across from the store. I looked around the area. I hadn't been here for a while, but it had changed much. I remember Yoongi and Jungkook's houses were nearby. In the right-hand side alley, I saw graffiti on the wall. Taeyoung must have painted it. I went closer. I stopped in front of the painting. It was a rough sketch of a cold, emotionless face done with black paint. And I knew whose face it was, the owner of the face. I recalled seeing Seokjin at the hospital a couple of days ago. The map of the soul, Seokjin said, but the voice I heard wasn't his. I heard someone else saying it, but I couldn't remember who. I felt nauseated. Who was it? I saw a face in the midst of the black clouds, the one that resembled the face in the graffiti. Right. The television man in the psychiatric ward. He'd said the map of the soul. I remembered now. The map of the soul, that was it. Sitting in front of the TV in the psychiatric ward lounge. He would say it again and again, devoid of any human warmth on his face. But when someone asked him a question, he would have the same answer. I don't remember. He didn't look anything like Seokjin, but for a moment his face overlapped with his. They had the same eyes, the soulless eyes. I went back to the convenience store. When I opened the door and ran in, the cashier stared at me. "Isn't Kim Taehyung working today?" the cashier said. He changed to the morning shift, saying he's got some important thing to do. Is something wrong? It's my fault for not having called Taeyoung. Was something wrong with him? I sat on a park bench across from the store and opened the chat room. I left a message. I found a clue to the map of the soul. Oh my god, sorry, I didn't want to jump and oh my god, what if the crazy dude in the hospital is Jin? What if there's multiple versions of Jin? Nah, right? No way. How nuts would that be, dude? Okay. Namjoon puts an entry on the same day of July 18th, year 22. If I didn't believe in Taeyoung's dream and something did happen, I probably would not be able to forgive myself. Taeyoung called early in the afternoon. The rain that had slashed down for 5 days straight had softened to a drizzle. "You're going to do it today, right?" I met him at Songju Station bus stop a little after 7. The rain finally stopped, and just the wind blew. It pushed away the black clouds, revealing the dark blue sky. At the bus stop, we ate the sandwich and gimbap Taeyoung had brought. Their expirations were up or close to it. The train that had departed from Songju Station picked up speed and was gone, out of our sight. We passed City Hall and got off the bus next to the movie theater. The convenience store we talked about was about 100 meters away from the intersection. Strange senses of expectation and fear crisscrossed. Taeyoung said he saw the future in his dreams. I said believing something which you find hard to believe, that's really believing it, but I was a realistic person. At different moments, I was overcome with seething doubt and disbelief, and I asked myself, do I believe Taeyoung? And the answer was always the same. Look! Taeyoung stopped and tugged my sleeve. I stopped too. Taeyoung was pointing to the 4-leaf clover logo. And beyond that, people were replacing a billboard. The energy drink was coming down and a new billboard was going up. A canned coffee. We didn't know who began to run first. It was only about 40 to 50 meters away and it wouldn't have made any difference if we got there faster. The canned coffee billboard or the building across from it would not disappear, but we were in a hurry to get there. We got to the building with the billboard, panting, and took a sweeping look of the place. It was late, but there were many passers-by. I said, let's go up, we can't see from here. We went into the building, got in the elevator, and headed to the rooftop. We'd been here before, but back then, the metal door to the rooftop was locked, and all we could do was crane our necks out of the staircase window to get a look-see. But today, as they were replacing the billboard, the rooftop door was open. So not Jin, but Taehyung's dreams are coming true. It's almost like he's seeing the future, which Jin knows every possible outcome at this point, so are his dreams connected with Jin's? When we walked past the door, there was a loud metal clanking sound. Startled, we glanced at each other. The workmen were fixing a billboard, and we saw the building across from us, City Hall on the left-hand side and the railways across from Cheongju City on the right. Behind us were a shopping mall, the county welfare center, and some commercial buildings. Nothing seemed taller than 7 stories. It must be one of them there. We scrutinized each building. You there, what are you doing there? The building security guard approached us. Are you here for the billboard? Right as I was about to say something, Taeyoung pulled me to the side. There, look over there. I looked where Taeyoung was pointing, a building in the distance between the shopping mall and the parking garage. We couldn't be sure, but it looked about 5 stories high. I looked at Taeyoung, and we started running down from the rooftop. We took the elevator down and ran across the road. We got to the street between the shopping mall and the parking garage. It was uphill. It was a summer night. The typhoon had passed, leaving behind moisture in the air. We sweated and our hearts pounded. Only when we got to the building did we turn around. We looked down on the 4-leaf clover and the canned coffee billboard. It was only a 5-story building, but we climbed uphill. The building was located on the top of the slope. If we were to go inside, we should be able to look down on the whole city. We looked up at the building. Some offices had lights on the inside. Because it was close to City Hall, there were several CPA and law offices. The lights were on in the office on the very top 5th floor, and there was a familiar name hung out of the office window, the office of National Assemblyman Kim Chang-jung. Who is that? Taeyoung asked. You don't know? I looked at him. Taeyoung looked at me with innocent, credulous eyes. From time to time, I would be simply baffled by Taeyoung. He would be so brazen about things he didn't know, things I couldn't believe he didn't know. Kim Taeyoung had no qualms about looking at things, which I would find too scary even to go close to. When no one would give you a helping hand, Kim Taeyoung wouldn't think twice before offering his help. I answered. He sucked Jin's dad. Ooh. We walk up the emergency staircase to the 5th floor. We glanced down the hallway after coming out of the door. It wasn't a big building. Light was coming in through the glass door on the side of the hallway. A huge picture was hung on the left side of the glass door. A picture of Kim Chang-jung smiling and shaking hands with his voters. A sentence was printed above his head. When you go alone, you can go fast. When you go together, you can go further. On the right side of the door was the bulletin board for civil petitions. The petitions were taped under the National Future Party's logo with "A Politician Who Listens" written next to it, making Songju a city of innovation for the successful building of Technology Belt. I was reading the other stuff when I heard a sound inside the office. Startled, Taeyoung and I hid ourselves. Two men in white dress shirts came out, taking out cigarettes. They must have worked at the office. One of them opened the door wide. "We shouldn't be caught smoking by Mr. Song. The aide is not going to be here at this time of day. We can smoke and come back in a jiffy." When the men went down the elevator, we scampered into the office. There was a reception desk and a round table behind that. A door behind the desk to the left had "conference room" written on it. When we opened that door, would it really be the place Taeyoung had seen in his dream? I turned around and looked at Taeyoung. What is going on here, dude? They're like about to bust in on some corruption or some stuff. July 18th, year 22, Taeyoungs Entry. We opened the door with "conference room" written on it. There was a big round table with chairs around it. From the window, we could see the whole city, including the four-leaf clover logo, the Can Coffee billboard, and Yeonji Stream. Namjoon stood next to me and said, "Wow, this must be the place, but what should we do now?" "Taeyoung, does this make you remember anything else?" He walked around the office looking at this and that. I felt numb as I looked out the window. I heard Namjoon's voice as if it were coming from far away, as if we were under the seawater. Things seemed surreal as they swayed. My breathing slowed down, and things looked hazy, as if I was dreaming. My body floated up and slowly spun. Seokjin was sitting in a chair, talking on the phone. He smiled faintly and stood up. In front of him was a folder. Songju City Redevelopment. The moment he picked it up, all the lights in the city vanished. Dream came true. "Kim Taehyung!" Hearing my name, I snapped out of it. Namjoon's voice was low but urgent. We heard sounds coming from outside the office. "Yes, Mr. Song. The printer in the conference room? Yes, we'll put the document inside the cabinet and lock it. No, don't worry." "Hide!" Namjoon lay low behind the sofa. I rolled to hide behind the cabinet. Two men came back and turned the lights on. I closed my eyes and made myself smaller. When I opened my eyes, I saw printed pages below the printer. On the bottom read Songju City Redevelopment Plan, page 3. I crawled out from behind the cabinet. My eyes met Namjoon's. He gestured as if to ask what the hell I was up to and to go back. The men were still standing by the door. Looking inside the room, I extended my arm and grabbed a pile of papers from the printer. Namjoon and Tae are just trading back entries here on the same day. Namjoon writes, "What paper did he mean?" The man who turned on the lights looked around the room. It's a top secret document about the redevelopment plan. But he had a problem with the printer. It hasn't been printed yet. I wish we'd been done with the redevelopment soon. Too many things are so complicated. If one thing gets leaked, everyone will be headed to the big house. It's so risky. Maybe I should call Mr. Song again. After the men turned off the light and left, Taeyoung slowly crawled out from behind the cabinet. Taeyoung was holding the papers in his hand. I gestured to him to leave the papers, pointing to the papers. Taeyoung mouthed the word, "You mean this?" I nodded. But the idiot rolled up the papers and stuck them under his belt. "Idiot, put them down." I mouthed the word as big as I could, but Taeyoung's face showed he couldn't understand what I was telling him. Taeyoung gestured for me to leave, and we headed for the door. Taeyoung's next entry, same day. The men were talking on the phone by the desk. Namjoon and I stayed close to the floor and tiptoed quietly toward the door. Fortunately, the door was still wide open. We passed the hallway and headed to the stairs. We ran down the 5 flights of stairs like hell. Even when we got outside, we still ran. We ran through narrow alleys and repeated making the left turn and then the right turn. It became easier for us to get away. How many times did we get chased by the police? When I said that, Namjoon gestured, throwing a punch at me. I fumbled under my shirt and brought out the papers. Namjoon said we should throw them away, but why? It might be related to Seokjin. To that, he said, "Didn't you hear those men? It's top secret. We shouldn't get involved in something complicated." It was then that the police showed up around the corner. After scrutinizing us up and down, the officer reported on his radio. 2 men in the late teens or early 20s. Match the description. We'll take them to the station ASAP. Oh no, they've been caught, dude. What? I can't handle the stress. J-Hope's entry on July 19th, which is the next day. You're 22. Taeyoung and Namjoon were sitting on the steps in front of the police station. Seeing me limp, Taeyoung bolted up and came running. What's wrong with your leg? It's no big deal. I sprained my ankle when I had to carry someone. Namjoon scratched his head and said, if I'd known, I would have called you. I'm sorry. I shrugged and raised my hands. Taeyoung asked, you came empty-handed. What do you mean? You called in the middle of the night to pick you up, and now I'm here. You complain about me being empty-handed. Namjoon said, he means you don't have tofu with you. What? I looked at Taeyoung in utter disbelief. It's not like you got dragged to the police station for the first time. You want tofu now? Making it obvious that he was disappointed, Taeyoung said, I keep coming back to this place because I haven't had tofu. How many times do I have to tell you? Namjoon tapped my shoulder and said, let's go. We went to the 24-hour gimbap place in front of the station and sat together at the table. So what happened? Why are you in this neighborhood and why did you get dragged to the police station? Namjoon had called a little after 5 in the morning. He apologized for waking me up and asked me to come down to the Songju police station. My eyes. With his mouth full of gimbap, Taeyoung was about to explain, but Namjoon covered Taeyoung's mouth with his hand and told me what had happened. So, did they catch you? In response to my question, Namjoon said no. We managed to get out of the place, but what happened next came out of nowhere. A building security guard near the place reported to the police that 2 strange men were seen going in and out of buildings. True, we had made a spectacle of ourselves as we went around the place. We walked into every building and opened every door we could. It would have been odd if no one had suspected us. Taeyoung said, we lied and said we were looking for a place to spend the night, and that wasn't a capital crime, while acting like we really were delinquents. I asked, what did you do with the papers? Taeyoung glanced in Namjoon's direction, and with a downcast look, he said Namjoon threw them away. After they'd arrived at the police station, Namjoon had dumped them inside an open door while the officers were not looking. What kind of papers were they? I asked. I don't know. Something about the redevelopment plan. Why did you steal them in the first place? Taeyoung looked at Namjoon. Namjoon sighed and said, Hoseok, this might be hard to believe, but... ... Next entry would be the next day on the 20th of July. This is Namjoon's entry. Taeyoung had stolen the redevelopment papers for no particular reason. No, Taeyoung might have had a desperate reason, but all he could say was he felt as if he had to. He felt that Seokjin was becoming strange because of it. Hoseok looked at me as if to say he didn't understand what the hell we were talking about. 2 days passed after that, and the typhoon was gone, and there was no reason for us to roam the city. I came back to my routine, going to the library in the morning and working at the gas station in the afternoon. Taeyoung texted me about this and that, but he wasn't able to find any new leads. He was coming up with far-fetched ideas like his usual self. Only when I went to work did I realize what we'd done. The news that was on TV in the gas station office, the scandal involving Songju City redevelopment plan. They had discovered a document disclosing an agreement. The police would not interfere even if violence were committed by hired servicemen. What? I was expecting... Hold up. I was expecting, like, Jin's dad to be, like, shady, right? But not for the cops to be shady. Oh, this is getting good. Okay. The reporter said someone had left a concerned document in the reporter's lounge inside the police station. Police station, the reporter's lounge, and the redevelopment plan. I dumped that document into the reporter's hand. The redevelopment plan had already been made public. They planned to clear out the containers and illegal shanties by the railways to build apartments. It wasn't the first time hearing about such a plan, but it had been all talk with no action. People living in the area trusted it would stay that way, or they just didn't have an alternative or an answer to the problem. When my boss came into the office, a man with slightly gray hair started a press conference on TV. His name was provided over his chest on the screen, National Assembly member Kim Chong-jun, Seokjin's dad. He was the man in the picture hanging outside that office. A blueprint of the development was on TV, followed by an explanation that the redevelopment of Area 4 would soon be underway. To solve housing problems for people of Songju and to accommodate an influx of people for the technology belt in Area 2, the redevelopment must be underway. I would appreciate your cooperation and continued interest. Go ahead, just bulldoze everything out of your way. Well, they're going to bury that document about permitting violence after this interview. There are more than just 1 or 2 people waiting for the redevelopment to start. My boss clicked his tongue at the TV. Still, how could they force those people out of their homes? Kim Chong-jun wasn't like that before. Scary how power changes people. What? Okay. 20th of July, year 22 is the next day. This is J-Hope's entry. After my evening shift, I stopped by the Yeonji children's home. I brought an armful of cookies and let the children in the living room share them, and then I headed to the director's office. The air in the office was completely different from the living room. The news was on TV about Songju City redevelopment. I saw Kim Chong-jun's face briefly on TV. The director turned off the TV in a hurry and asked me if I would like something to drink. How is our aunt doing? I changed the topic on purpose. After she recovers from the surgery, we're going to do everything we can for her. Hosuk, she said she'd do her best to get better, and we should all cheer up and hope for the best. A loud noise came from the living room. The children were fighting over the cookies. One boy banged open the director's office door and barged in. Hong-gil, the oldest boy, pointed to the living room TV and said, Area 4 is where our orphanage is, but why is it that they haven't even mentioned us? They don't have a place for our orphanage on the new map. A couple more boys ran in and one of them said, We're moving? Another boy said, Are we moving to a bigger place? The director answered them, You don't have to worry about anything. The aunts and I will take care of everything, kids. I have things to talk about with Hosuk, so why don't you go outside and play soccer? After sending the kids out, she plopped on a chair opposite me. What's going to happen to us? I asked with my eyes on her. Nothing has been decided yet. They might build a new orphanage in Area 1. It might take some time though. How long? Meanwhile, they'll have us scattered to different places, but Mr. Kim Chong-jun, the assemblyman, said, I know, he promised us to build a new orphanage in Area 4 so that we could stay together. Downcast, the director said, We have to see how things develop. I guess we'll see, right? That's the big message there. Alright. Jungkook, July 20th, year 22, I think is the same day. I limped around the hospital hallway. I'd been discharged a couple days from now. I couldn't go to sleep. The surveillance video the police had shown me, the witness who had disappeared at my friends, who wouldn't tell me things straight. I walked to tire myself out so that I could shake off my thoughts. Suddenly, I saw an iron door in front of me. I didn't know I'd walked up to the top of the emergency stairway. I opened the door to the rooftop. Sitting on the railing, I looked up at the night sky and slowly stood up. I took one step and another on the railing. I walked dragging my left foot in a cast. Feeling unbalanced, my body kept swaying sideways. I looked down. The cars in the parking lot looked like small toys, and the people looked so small and vulnerable that I could squash them with my finger. I felt a sudden spasm in my knee and lurched from side to side. I extended both my arms to regain my balance. I came down from the railing, sweating. Couldn't understand why I'd gone up there in the first place. What if I'd fallen off? I turned and saw the night view of Songju over the railing. I wouldn't die even if it were to make someone happy. I spat out the words to the lights. Even if someone had to die, I had no intention of being that someone. Grabbed my crutches, headed back to the iron door. As I walked down the stairs, the sensor lights turned on. You go, Jungkook. You tell Death no. J-Hope's entry, next day, July 21st, year 22. The director and I had spent the whole morning in front of City Hall, but to no avail. City Hall people kept telling us nothing had been decided, so we should wait. We asked to talk with the mayor, but it was obvious that was not going to happen. But we couldn't go back empty-handed. We sat on the stairs to City Hall with the sun beating down on us until the former brothers from the orphanage showed up. They said they'd stay in place of a director, but she just shook her head. The mayor showed up past 3, but he just walked right past us as if our wait had been for nothing. We wanted to follow him in, but security and his aides stopped us. Mr. Mayor, please wait, our orphanage. Yeonji's children's home is our home. taking away our home, we screamed, but he didn't pay attention. As I was coming down the stairs, Jimin called again. I'd forgotten to call him back. I didn't have the presence of mind to call or talk to anyone. Are you busy? Hearing Jimin's voice, I realized how peaceful my world had been just a couple of days ago. We'd had misunderstandings and squabbles, but nothing this desperate. I'm a bit preoccupied because of the orphanage. What's up? After some hesitation, Jin said, nothing much. I couldn't get a hold of you. You know what Sok, Jin said. Jimin, I'm a bit busy, right? At that moment, someone came down from the stairs and said, we should go to the assemblyman. He's the one who made the announcement for the plan. That assemblyman, I realized then that the assemblyman Kim Chang-jun was Sok Jin's father. It's like they're all like coming together to accomplish a task. Maybe that's the bigger picture. I don't know. But that's the end of the chapter for us. Things are starting to get a little crazy and hectic, right? In that chapter, we learn that Jin's dad is shady. The police are shady. The politicians are shady. And they're all working together to build apartment complexes to make money. And they don't care who they run out or run over to get it done. Interesting. Anyway, I'll see you guys on the next chapter.